Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
Thursday, May 29th. I feel like today's Liberation Day. Now that the tariffs have been put on ice. Who
Yeah.
knew it's what it was going to take?
Well, I think there's a couple stories here. One is Trump had been taking criticism on from Wall Street. I guess the slogan is taco. Trump always chickens out because most of these tariffs had already been reversed by Donald Trump. But now we have the courts getting around to stepping in and basically unwinding this. There's even reports that if you paid a tariff, you will be reimbursed, something like that. But the tariffs have been halted. And I guess the large question here, Bill, is, how much of what Trump wants to do, will be stopped by the courts? And is that good? Like, wouldn't it, in a way, a lot of Trump's plans are bad. Wouldn't it be better to let them actually play out? But I guess he already chickened out anyway, so it's a moot point.
Well, I mean, as funny as taco trade is, I worry it's going to make Trump dig in and find new ways to impose tariffs so he doesn't get accused of chickening out. The court ruling.
Wait, you're suggesting the president of the United States would set policy based on his perception of what makes him look strong or tough, rather than what is actually good economic policy?
I mean, I feel like almost everybody understands this at this point. And the court ruling puts the kibosh on the reciprocal tariffs. These broad, 10%, 100% on your country. It doesn't speak to his power to put tariffs on industry sectors.
And am I correct, Bill, that it's because the conceit that Trump, the impetus for imposing these tariffs was that there was an emergency, right? And he used his emergency powers to implement these tariffs, and apparently that was, it was obviously bogus.
Well, my understanding was that the law that was being cited didn't include tariffs as a thing you could do in such an emergency.
Right.
He was just inferring that it is a thing that I could do in theory, even though it's not laid out in the law itself. So, I'm sure it'll go to the Supreme Court. It's not fully litigated yet.
Mm-hmm. And they're pushing
many Americans
back.
are learning that we even have a court of international trade. They probably didn't know that before.
Well, the courts are also pushing back on the deportations and the immigration stuff as well. Yeah. And again, he cites these emergency powers, and I do wonder how much of Trump's now Trump gets to basically now Trump will get to say, I wanted to do this. We were going to have a beautiful country, but the deep state, won't let me get away with it, right?
Well, I think this is sort of the point you were trying to get at before. Is it would have been better to let all the horrible things happen, and Trump takes full responsibility for it, or is it better that the courts stop him, but then he gets to play things would have been awesome if it wasn't for these stupid courts. You should hit on these courts, and it's hard to fully game that out as far as the political perceptions are concerned. I think it is important that we have an independent judiciary that works as the founders intended. I think it'd be a worse situation in the long run if Trump could just bully his way through the checks and balances and we'd have a de facto authoritarian government. So I'm happy to see that the value of the independent judiciary is being proven. Even if I can't know what the Supreme Court's going to do, they could still side with Trump on a bunch of things. But it's important for Bill to see that there is a function for the courts as we have it, and the lifetime appointment is a reason why the judiciary remains independent. And if we didn't have that, we'd already be in a de facto dictatorship.
I obviously agree with that. It's hard to disagree with that. But look, we're talking about protectionism. That's what's happening with Trump. We are protecting him. And in the first term, Trump didn't get to implement because he had staffers and aides who were slow walking and undermining him, let's be honest, the crazy things he wanted to do. And so I think the public never got a full sense of how dangerous Trump's policies were. And I just have to say, as someone who's a philosophical um, Paul Ryan type conservative, the word conservative is meaningless at this point, but someone who, in the Reagan sort of conservative sense, um, Trump's tariffs were going to be a disaster. And it's frustrating to know that there will be no evidence of that. That,
well, we still may well have very significant tariffs because he can still do these industry sector tariffs. So don't worry just yet. Things might still be truly terrible economically.
I mean, obviously, I don't want a depression, but I do think that how are we ever going to learn lessons unless there's some cost associated with bad policies?
We're still in a period of a lot of economic uncertainty, where businesses really don't know what to expect on a week-to-week basis, which Trump can try to blame shift and scapegoat judges for. But I think everybody can see, like, who got this ball rolling. It's Donald Trump. There wasn't a period since the tariffs were introduced where things actually were awesome and everyone was loving it, even though he can try to claim it. I don't think most reasonable folks, and when I say reasonable, I mean anyone who's not already drunk in the Kool-Aid, who buy that. So there's plenty of opportunity to say Trump has injected needless uncertainty and instability into the domestic and global economy, while he has spent the primary bulk of his time lining his own pockets and those of his friends.
Well, and so the courts are, stepping in, as I mentioned, in issues having to do with tariffs and immigration or deportations. One area where I don't think they will actually have much recourse, but there's obviously, corruption and self-dealing going on here, have to do with these pardons. This is an area that the president has, as far as I know, pretty wide latitude to pardon whoever he wants. And he has pardoned 11 people. This includes a Virginia sheriff who was convicted for taking cash bribes in exchange for badges, basically making people deputies without the vetting and all that. And these reality stars that I've never heard of, but apparently their daughter spoke at the RNC. I think that some of the people pardoned have had donations to Trump, big donations, or family members have made donations. And now there are reports that Trump is considering pardoning the people who were planning to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Someone said, I don't know who it was, but they said, no MAGA left behind. You can never be too far to the right. And if you are, Donald Trump will get, you get a get out of free jail pass. Look, I think we talked about this. Maybe we talked about this the other week. Ashley Babbitt, the woman who was shot and killed by Capitol Police during the January 6th riot. There was a deal where her family, I guess, is going to get $5 million. Obviously, Trump pardoned all of the January 6th insurrectionists. Lawlessness, Bill, what do you make of this?
Well, I know it's going to feed a lot of arguments to reform pardon power, which, of course, isn't going to happen. It would require a constitutional amendment, and that's never going to pass. I wouldn't support that. I think there is value in having a final backstop invested in the president.
Couldn't there be a reform where it's not, a unilateral decision, though, where the president, nominates people and a blue ribbon panel of bipartisan experts get to vote on it or something?
I mean, there's no one perfect way here to do this. I mean, if you're starting from scratch, maybe you'd come with a slightly different system, but there's always a way to hack it. I mean, you wouldn't want to put parties in the Constitution. You wouldn't want to embed that. Because we over the course of the last 250 years, the makeup of our political organizations has been evolving. We didn't have any parties at all at the beginning. So I don't know. There's a way to make it absolutely hack proof, and to be able to say there are extenuating circumstances that because no system is perfect, that this jury system didn't catch, and we're going to make an elected official accountable to voters is going to make a judgment here. Over the course of the last 250 years, I think that's worked pretty well. We haven't seen a whole lot of abuses of that system, but nothing's
Bill
ever perfect.
Clinton,
What's
Clinton,
that?
Bill Clinton.
I mean, you can find examples, but
Donald
I'd
Trump.
say on the whole, I'd say it's been a net positive.
Yeah, but don't you think that Donald Trump has served as like a check? I don't know. There's a term for this, but it's early in the morning for us. But hasn't Donald Trump exposed many areas that are vulnerable and susceptible to?
Sure. I mean, he has been the ultimate stress test of the Constitution. So you see where it's strong and where it's weak. But perfection is impossible. I mean, you elect bad people; they're going to find a way to do bad things.
I think you just paraphrased John Adams.
And the one check on this, I'm not saying it's going to ever be used or could easily be used, is impeachment. I mean, if a president is abusing pardon power, the Congress could impeach him for that. I mean, there's high crimes and misdemeanors is a fuzzy phrase that can be interpreted however a Congress sees fit, so long as you can get 2/3 in a majority of the House and 2/3 of the Senate to agree. And I'm not expecting that to happen today, but that would be the way to punish a president. If you couldn't punish him at the polls because of term limits, that's what's left. And so I think there's a backstop to the backstop in extreme circumstances.
Now, I mean, this to me dovetails the other story, which is Donald Trump profiting off of these meme coins and crypto and all of this stuff. I don't really understand, but basically, people who want to influence Trump can just buy his coin, and it's essentially public bribery. And they got to come to a dinner with Trump. Apparently, some of them weren't happy with the access that they bought, but nevertheless, it's a way to influence the president by making him happy by giving him money. I was talking to Chuck Todd on the podcast the other day, Bill, and I wanted to get your take on this because you are a history maven. Chuck was saying, he was postulating that going after someone on character issues doesn't work, but what does work is corruption and self-dealing and self-enrichment. And we went back to Republicans taking over in 94 with the House banking and post office scandal, and was it Speaker Wright with the book deal? That's the first time it was a corruption. Really, led to Republicans taking over for the first time in 40 years of the House. You can fast forward to the Tom DeLay stuff. What do you make of that? Do you buy that argument that nobody cares about the character issues, but if you can demonstrate self-enrichment, that actually may stick?
I don't really quite follow the distinction there. The distinction that I would draw, there's plenty of times where corrupt politicians, don't suffer political consequences. I think the connection you have to make is how it is impacting the regular person.
Yeah, in fairness, he talked about that too.
Okay. So, if someone is functioning in a corrupt way, but the broader public is doing well, they're not going to care. If the president or a politician is actively making the economy bad while making his own economy good, then you got something pretty potent there,
right? Which
I think is the current situation. Much cared about, Clinton's pardons, happen at the very, very end, before.
Yes. Literally like the last day, I think.
Right. But even that, I think, did not really rankle the broad public, obviously rankle conservatives. But, most people ended on, whatever Clinton's flaws were, the economy was pretty good, so I don't care.
Yeah.
And
we can be bought.
So Speaker Mike Johnson was on CNN with Jake Tapper on Sunday and was asked about the dinner. It's going to be hard for me to get the right quote on my phone in real time, so I apologize. But he basically said, Tapper basically you saw things about Joe Biden and his family's business dealings. Doesn't this apply here? And Johnson said something that was really just flat dishonest. Talking about the Biden crime family and all these things that made it
behind
seem
the curtain, something like that.
Well, all these things that made it sound like what happened with Joe Biden was sort of provenly criminal, which is not true. And that whatever you can say about Donald Trump, it's out in the open.
Yeah.
As if that's some kind of defense. Well, he didn't hide it from you, so you should be glad that we all know about it. And at the same time, he's also arguing, well, I didn't read about it, I didn't see it. It's all very self-contradictory and disingenuous. I don't know what's going on, but it's all in the open, so let's not care. I mean, it's disingenuous word salad. It is obviously quite blatant, and I don't think the average person cares for it, especially when everything else is so shaky, economically speaking. So I think Democrats have a lot of should not feel like nobody cares. He always gets away with it. I think there's crops to
it feels like we're still early in the first act of this play, but it feels like what's the line? Is it Chekhov? Something like if you show a gun in the first act, it has to be used by the end of the play or the end of the movie or something, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like some of the things that we are seeing happen, if this is a story, that the hubris will catch up to them, right? They're doing things early on that very well could be setting them up for a fall down the road.
I think Trump's term limited. He's not going to be impeached and convicted. He's not going to lose an election himself, but I think he's doing genuine damage to the Republican Party. And you can certainly see Democrats, taking advantage of the backlash in 26 and 28, the way things are going.
One interesting development this week was the exit of Elon Musk, who has been, ever since he went to Wisconsin, Bill, and put on that cheese hat and basically sabotaged Republicans in that was it a judge election or something out there? I think that he has been slowly backing into the shrubbery like Homer Simpson, but now I guess it's official that his time is complete with DOGE, mission accomplished, I suppose, but he's on his way out the door. And apparently, by the way, I hear that Tesla is down 71% profits from a year ago this quarter, something like that. But as Elon exits, he is throwing some shots at Donald Trump, saying that he doesn't think a bill can be big and beautiful, something like that at the same time. He's basically saying that this big, beautiful bill that Trump and Republicans passed is going to undo the work of DOGE in terms of the debt and the deficit.
And I think also the Tesla X account. This is Tesla Energy. This is sort of it's not the main Tesla account. The main Tesla account we reposted it. This was around midnight a few hours ago. Abruptly ending the energy tax credits would threaten America's energy independence and the reliability of our grid. We urge the Senate to enact legislation with a sensible wind down of 25D and 48E. These are sections, I think, of the Inflation Reduction Act. This will ensure continued speed deployment of over 60 gigawatt capacity per year to support AI and domestic manufacturing growth. So it's not even just the broader
1.21 gigawatts?
Yeah.
Sorry. I always like to say that.
This is not even just the deficit concerns that Musk was talking about in his interview, but now he's talking about the energy part of it, which there are some Republican senators that have not been thrilled at the House version because a lot of red states get that Joe Biden money for their clean energy industries. So that's where that lands is up in the air. Musk to the extent that Musk is being accurate here, is not to say that he's the hero of the story. I think you are seeing everyone recognize that governing is harder than it looks. Everyone talked a big game going in. We're going to fix everything on day one. I'm going to cut $2 trillion. I'm going to lower prices. I'm going to bring peace to Russia and Ukraine. And nothing ever works as advertised. And the way
day
they
one,
What's
on
that?
day one, he was going to fix the price, the inflation problem and the Ukraine war on day one.
Yeah.
Right.
Look, Donald Trump, I think there's a way that Trump and Musk are similar and a way they are very different. And forgive me for thinking aloud now, because I might write about this today. So this is part of me trying to figure out what I'm going to write about. They're both similar in that they're both cranks. They're people who can very easily get on their bar stools and talk about how everyone in charge is terrible. No, they're all idiots. They're all morons. If I was in charge, I'd fix this problem. I know what to do. And then they get there, they realize, governing is complicated. And things aren't always perfect, and you have to make compromises, and that's the way the world works. And where they're different is that Elon Musk is the head of profitable businesses, and once he learned that taking over government wasn't so easy and fun, he has a place to go back to make money. Donald Trump ran fraudulent businesses, and him going into politics was a way to keep the grift going, and he really doesn't have a place to easily go back to at this point. And so and for him, I think being in the middle of government is still fun. Even he doesn't necessarily care so much about hitting his governing metrics. He enjoys being the center of attention, no matter what's actually happening. He has a bottomless capacity to blame others for his faults. And even
another place that they have a lot in common is overpromising underachieving. And I mentioned Trump declared that within 24 hours of his first day or whatever, prices are going to come down and he's going to wrap up the war with Russia and Ukraine. Jonathan V. Last over at the Bulwark had this just documented bullet point after bullet point of Elon Musk going back to like 2017 saying like within the end of the year, we're going to have self-driving cars, and basically really overpromising and underachieving time and again. He's always bullshitting. He's always selling. He's always, and I was told in politics that the number one rule is underpromise, overachieve. Like set low expectations and exceed them. And that's the way to do it. But Trump and Musk do it the opposite. They overpromise and underachieve. It completely defies conventional wisdom about politics and delivery. It's obviously delusional, but so far all it does is cause them to fail forward.
And I think this has confused the Democrats, because the Democrats are the party of serious governance. I think I would call it an objective truth at this point. Republicans have really are an unserious party. I think Democrats are a more serious party, but Democrats, or at least some see the political value of the oversell, and got very frustrated, particularly in the Obama years, that they weren't delivering as robustly and as quickly as they would have liked, and that gave an opening for a huckster like Donald Trump to do the oversell and expose Democratic weakness. And that led to Joe Biden doing some overselling himself. Once he got there, I'm not going to repeat those Obama mistakes. We're going to do the American Rescue Plan. We're going to throw this money in. It's going to fix everything right away.
Which led to inflation, contributed to inflation.
You could argue contributed to inflation. They got over their skis on the child tax credit, where they got it in for a year, but they couldn't extend it beyond that. Student loans, they couldn't relieve everyone's student loans the way they wanted to because it got blocked by the courts. But they thought it was better to, lean in as far as you can go, and you'll get some credit, for that. But there are downsides to that strategy too. Donald Trump did lose re-election because things weren't working out the way that he claimed they were going to. And you could say, well, it was just the pandemic, but he was in a bad shape before the pandemic. And he oversold in the pandemic. That's also part of the problem. They didn't manage the pandemic in a serious way. He treated it another political thing to exploit.
One day it's just going to disappear.
Right. Yeah. So look, it's hard to win elections with the undersell overperform model. I'm not saying anything about this is easy, but setting expectations, I think, is a pretty critical part of good governance. And when you have someone like Trump who wants to set expectations through the roof at all times, it does make the job of the opposition harder. But I think just as a matter of how do you have a stable government, a stable society, people need to have a good grasp of this is what government can and can't do for me, and therefore this is what I have to do for myself.
It's sort of like great inflation or an arms race. I mean, if and by the way, it's funny to me. It used to be said of Republicans would say it to other Republicans, like, don't get into a bidding war with Democrats. You can't win. It's had to do with spending. But it turns out you can win if you're Donald Trump. You can win that bidding war. And I think the problem is once one, it's sort of a bipolar world here. Once one side decides to exaggerate the deliverables consistently, the other side has to do the same thing. Because to try to shoot straight, what was it, Walter Mondale? We're both going to raise taxes. The difference is, I just told you, whatever.
He won't tell you, and I just did.
There you go. And no offense to Ronald Reagan here, but that just came to mind. I mean, it doesn't work to say...
He's also correct. Reagan did end up raising some taxes in the second term.
Yeah, but it didn't work, did it, Bill?
It didn't work.
The
funny thing about that is that he said that at the convention in '84, he actually got a convention bump. It wasn't immediately politically disastrous for him to talk straight. Now, in a matter of relatively quickly, Reagan shoved it up his ass and ended up being a net negative.
And the other thing about overpromising it, I think people price it into Trump. I think people say he says he's going to build a wall that's 3,000 miles. I doubt if he'll really do that, but this at least shows he really cares. Maybe it'll be 1,000-mile wall. Mm-hmm. It's better than the other people who, and so, but it just, once one side does it, the other side is forced to do it. You have to lie if you're going to even be in the game and even in the conversation. And that's, bad, for lack of a better word.
Let me get your take on this. So part of the oversell game involves the one big beautiful bill. I mean, the name literally is an oversell. And they brought in Elon Musk to do massive cost cutting, coming and claiming they're going to literally cut $2 trillion in government spending, which you cannot do unless you're going at Social Security and Medicare, which wasn't part of Musk's purview. So Musk comes in, fires a bunch of people. Whether that even produces any net savings is debatable. The DOGE people were saying this is saving $160 billion. There was a study that came out saying when you take into account the consequences of this, payouts and litigation and stuff like that, it's actually going to be more cost, not less cost. But either way, it's nowhere near $2 trillion in savings. It's not even close. And now you have the one big beautiful bill, which by every measure is a budget buster. It adds to debt and deficit. There's a conservative group called the Tax Foundation. I saw one Republican say, well, you can't trust the Congressional Budget Office numbers. They don't do dynamic scoring. They don't take into account the economic growth. Well, Tax Foundation did a dynamic score, and it still was a deficit buster.
Mhm.
So no one is seriously arguing this is even deficit neutral, let alone deficit reduction.
Stephen Miller's seriously arguing it, but he's not a serious person
Yes.
arguing it.
Yes.
But
So
well, let me ask.
here's Elon Musk saying,
Yeah.
Calling Trump out on it. Do you, Matt Lewis, think that it matters? Can they get 4 Republicans? I mean, it would be either 4 Republicans in the Senate or 4 Republicans in the House, because we'll come back to the House eventually, whenever it comes out of the Senate, to say, you know what, this doesn't do anything to reduce the deficit. We promised that it would. I can't vote for this. Or
No way.
The other thing
It'll
is
pass.
that I just need to have these tax cuts, and so I don't care how ugly it is, I'm going to do it.
It'll pass. There may be some tweaks to make it a little better, at least to win votes. Better for the certain senator who needs to be persuaded.
So Musk has no juice in this area. Musk can't draw enough attention to it to make 4 Republicans in one chamber or another back out.
No, I think he's sort of being ushered off stage. And Bill, it's interesting. I don't know whether they really thought, if they did, it was naive. If they really thought that the DOGE cuts would fund this big, beautiful bill, that it would end up being deficit neutral or something because of the cuts, or what. But I wonder, because I've in the last few months, I've spoken to some Trumpy people, and they don't like Musk. I had lunch a couple weeks ago with a friend who is very Trumpy, can't stand Musk. And I wonder, was he always set up to be the patsy by Donald Trump? I don't know. That would be pretty Machiavellian, but he shows up, is cast as the villain, and if only the czar knew what Elon Musk was up to. But man, they do not like him. Mm-hmm. And we saw what happened when he went to Wisconsin and tried to rally the Republican faithful there. It did not work. So he does not have the Trump magic. So I don't think it matters what he says that much.
And the optimistic take on all this is that all of this failure will be recognized by regular voters. And so the next time someone comes along with, the magic beans, they're not going to buy it as readily.
And this brings to, maybe we can close on this, Bill, the Democrats. And I have a piece in The Hill making a point. Maybe it's obvious. Donald Trump is magic in many ways, but the magic's not transferable. And assuming he leaves office in 3.5 years, the Democrats can get right back in this thing. Everybody's writing their obituary. They've got a ton of problems. They've alienated young white men, as Adam Kinzinger and Chuck Todd both have talked with me about recently on the podcast. I don't see a savior out there ready to rise from these streets. And yet, modern history is full of examples of kind of Teflon presidents getting 2 terms, and then the party that was in the wilderness and written off for dead resurrects, and they find their own Teflon president.
Well, look, I mean, Nixon cleaned George McGovern's clock, and then things went off the rails, and Jimmy Carter came in 1976. Reagan seemed untouchable, but was able to pass the baton to George H.W. Bush, but then things got rocky, and you got Bill Clinton. George W. Bush seemed like he had the magic touch, regular guy communication-wise. The record of failure piled up, and you got Barack Obama. And Donald Trump, he always gets away with it until he doesn't. You got Joe Biden. So the pendulum.
Yeah, and the whole time, the party that's out of power are seen as how. I remember Republicans freaking out. Democrats have a turnout operation. They've got this get out the vote operation. We have got to come. I forget what the Republicans came up with. It worked. They came up with their own get out the vote operation. And then it's like, Obama's so far ahead of us with young people, and the demographics all favor Biden. I'm sorry, the demographics all favor Obama, and they've got these tech whizzes, and then Trump comes along. I
also remember 1991, 92, Cuomo didn't run, and Bill Bradley didn't run, and Al Gore didn't run. What a pathetic feel the Democrats have. Bill Clinton, he's scandal tarred. Oh, this is Ross Perot's time. All these things, and of course, Clinton's dominating politics for the whole of the 90s. So there's plenty of opportunity for people to emerge, even if it's not clear who that's going to be. Now, I don't know if you saw, Matt. I did a piece for Politico.
Yes.
This week. I've been
saw
Politico
some of
for a while.
I saw some of the pushback on Twitter, Bill.
Well, it's funny
even from some of my own personal friends.
I'm not on X very much anymore.
Don't go on this week, Bill.
I mean, I did peek. I did peek at my notifications. It's amazing how readily the word retard is used on X. I never hear the word retard anywhere in society.
Yeah, well, you're allowed to say Merry Christmas again and retard, apparently.
Right.
It's
and there even were like news articles. Like there's a Fox News article. There's a Mediaite article. Like idiot Politico writer proposes Democratic shadow cabinet mocked mercilessly all over world. And so,
let's be real here too. When you are a writer and someone pitches you, we'd like you to put together a column. Just why don't you brainstorm who would be the cabinet, the unofficial cabinet, and just brainstorm that and put together a column. Like, that's kind of a tall order to write to begin with, right?
Right. I mean, and I was trying to write it in a semi-serious way. I'm trying to have it be a fun article. I mean, obviously, if you read it, like, not every person is literally would be the kind of person you would pick to be a cabinet member.
So Nikki Glaser wouldn't be in Bill Scher's cabinet?
Exactly.
Actually, she's got some zingers. I mean, come on.
Well,
she's good at what she does.
The point is, just to have a fun thought experiment to kind of think through the kinds of issues, the kinds of personalities, the kinds of things you want to highlight. I mean, I actually had some back and forth with the political editors because I said, I don't want to do any presidential candidates on this. And they were kind of assuming that I would. And they were like, what's your argument? I was like, yeah, you do the presidential. It's obvious names. If it actually went that way, everything would then get filtered through like what's self-serving for them, and you're not focusing on what's going wrong with the Republican administration, what Democrats would do differently. I was like, okay, I see it. So go for it, So, and I wanted to highlight some people that you might not have heard of. You might not know John Boyd Jr., the founder of the National Black Farmers Association. You might not know Bobby Olvera, who is the new president of the West Coast Longshoremen's Union. You might not know Jeff Speck, who is a pioneer in walkable cities, or Freddie O'Connell, who is the Nashville mayor who won on a mass transit platform. You might not even realize that a Democrat could win a mayoral seat in the South on promoting mass transit. So that's the kind of stuff that I wanted to do. And you could point to the Nikki Glaser, you could point to the Small Business Administrator, you can point to Giselle Fetterman as Director of Homeland Security. If you're an anti-immigrant person, that's going to seem ridiculous to you. So I don't care. The point is to have an interesting article and make you think about things.
If people are talking about you in this day and age, Bill, it's kind of a win. If we've learned nothing else from Trump, all attention is good, right?
Right, exactly.
That's what we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so check out my piece about Democrats down but not out. That's not the title, but hell, it could have been at the Hill. And I had a piece at the LA Times last week also on Democrats, basically kind of putting the Joe Biden is old story into context, which is like, yes, he is old. But I'm sort of looking at like, we knew that that wasn't really a big plot turn, but check it out if you like nuance. Bill, Scher, what should we read of yours other than the Politico piece?
Yeah, so the Politico piece at the Washington Monthly, I looked at the Medicaid waste, fraud, and abuse lie that's been coming from Trump and Mike Johnson, and Mike Johnson made it very plain when he was on CNN at that interview I mentioned before. when you think waste, fraud, and abuse, you think about, well, I'm gonna fix the bureaucracy to make things run more efficiently. And what Johnson is saying, well, we're gonna kick 6 million people off of Medicaid, and we're gonna call that waste, fraud, and abuse. People who I mean, a number of those people, we talk about undocumented immigrants, for example, they're actually not on Medicaid at all. They're on state-funded programs separate from Medicaid, but the plan is to then take away money from those states, so they'll change those programs. You could defend the position, but there's no fraud happening there. There's state programs that they're getting coverage from according to the state law. They call it able-bodied people who could work but aren't are getting Medicaid. These are people who are eligible for under current law. They didn't cheat the system. Medicaid has been expanded over the years, and there are folks who may not be working because they're just legitimately unemployed, under traditional unemployed definitions, or they're caregiving for elder family members, or they're going to school, or they have an illness that's taking them out of the workforce for the time being. They are eligible for it, and the Republican plan is to either change the eligibility so they're not for it, or in these so-called work requirements, or make the paperwork for the requirements so burdensome that people who would still be eligible wouldn't do the paperwork and wouldn't get it. Either way, you're not taking away waste, fraud, and abuse. You're just changing the program so less people can get it. And they're just not being honest about that. So I laid that out, I think, pretty clearly in the monthly column.
Very good. All right, my friend, check us out back here very soon in the DMZ. Have a good one, Bill Scher.
You too. Take care.